Two things. It's always nice to stand in front of a podium, not running for election. And the other thing is I never, ever wanted to follow Bill Best when he's been talking, because everybody's just in a great state of humor after that. Thanks, Bill. My name's Ross Foreman. My wife, Deborah, is here. For there, Deb and I were good friends with Bill and Helena. Just got a few things to say. We're both a retired pilot and retired flight attendant. I won't be long because I'm sure there's other people that need to talk. We need to hear from the aerobatic people and the sailing people. I knew Bill as an officer and a gentleman. We were really proud to be officers in the Royal Canadian Air Force. All of us here have known Bill from different directions, but my part was from the RCAF. I mean, there's pilots, there's snowbirds, and Bill was an honorary member of the snowbirds, air shows and sailing. I met him in Centralia, Ontario, on day one of joining the RCAF in June the 2nd, 1964, 59 years ago. We were there to do 12 weeks of Central Officers School, which we did before pilot training. Bobby was on 6404 too. So Bill was on the course called 6404. It's the fourth course, 1964, and it was the last course on Harvard's. And I was there doing paper test officer cadets in Centralia, and I was going on the first tutor course, which started in September. It was 6406. I never saw him after that in the Air Force because we just did different routes. I ended up in Transport Command and he was instructing. He ended up in Maritime Command also. But we knew so many stories. I mean, I spent a lot of time with him later in life, and we just had a lot of stories to go back and forth. Bill was never short of stories. I mean, I had to hold him down and cut him off sometimes. He just couldn't get a word in. It's like somebody saying, have you talked to your wife? And I said, no, I haven't talked to her for about 3 days. I didn't want to interrupt her. You know, like... I'm sure that'll be in the debrief. Bill had a great story about being on an airplane called the Neptune. And the Neptune, very few pilots flew. It had 4 engines, actually, 2 propellers and 2 jets. And it was a maritime patrol aircraft, like the Argus was. It went out in the ocean. He was based in Comox at that time, and they were chasing Russian submarines around and the Russian trawlers, which supported the submarines. And the Russians were real smart. They tried to dress their trawlers up, which had all the electronic stuff on it, like fishing boats. And Bill's job was to try and get pictures of these trawlers. And they looked exactly the same, except Bill says, you know, they weren't very smart. We knew the birds, the seagulls, followed the fish. So we knew which one were trawlers, which one were electronic, and which one were the fishing boats. It was crazy. Anyway, we both left the RCF as our chance of promotion was slim at that time. We wanted to fly commercially, and we both joined CPR. He was 1972, and I was 1973. And we've already talked about the 3 course mates that are here. Now, I have to tell you, pilots are kind of a different breed of people. We're guilty. The girl out on her first date with a pilot, he's sitting there at the keg, and they've had their second bottle of wine, and he's talked about himself for an hour. And he finally says, okay, that's enough about me. Let's talk about airplanes for a while now. So we became close friends later. We both worked for CALPA, the Canadian Airline Pilots Association. There was 2 councils in Vancouver, an overseas council and a domestic council. And Bill was on the domestic and I was on the overseas. And so we did a lot of work for CALPA together. And he was doing his airshow commitments at the same time. We both had to retire at the age 60. So Bill retired in 2002 and myself in 2005. And we just lived within a mile of Bill. So after he retired, he went sailing. Helena and him and some of you went sailing with him. I kept in touch as I was aware of his health problems. And Helena passing was really hard on him. And I feel the medical system really let Bill down. In the end, the cancer was detected but never properly dealt with. Blame it on COVID, I suppose, but I'm not sure. But anyway, that failed him. Grant and Craig stepped in. Grant especially, as Craig was working full-time, so Bill always told me how much he appreciated the help the boys were giving him. He went through cancer issues, hospitals, home care, hospitals, White Cliff Care Home. It was really difficult. Thank you, Shannon. So I spent a lot of time with Bill the last few months of his life. COVID made things difficult, but it was easy to be with him. We could just talk about so many stories. One of the stories he was so proud of was his dad, who was an Air Commodore, coming to Moose Jaw to give him his wings. And there's pictures back there of that. The base commander wasn't very happy with Bill for doing that. He says, "Why didn't you tell me your dad was an Air Commodore? We would have done more for him and done all this." But Bill said, no, I didn't want anybody to know my dad was an Air Commodore. It's not necessary. But anyway, it was just the way Bill was. That he wouldn't want to put on a show like that. But he was really proud of his dad. And Tristan, it's your great-granddad, and Grant and Craig, it's your great-granddad. He was an Air Commodore was a very respected rank in the RCF in those days. Anyway, that's all I've got to say. I miss Bill, and he was just a great person to be with. I reflect on how lucky I was to have him in my life, to know him. And we're really here for his sister, brother, sons, grandson, and the whole family. Per ardua ad astra. Thank you.